Hello students. In all our previous classes, we were dealing with entrepreneurship management. We would deal today with Unit 6, which deals with personal management and legislation. The personnel of a company or organization are the people who work for it. People employed in an organization are engaged in an organized undertaking such as military service. Many of the personnel involved requires training sales personnel. Therefore, personal management is the planning, organizing, directing and controlling of the performance of those operative functions. According to Edwin Flippo, concerned with procurement, development, compensation, integration and maintenance of personnel of organization for the purpose of controlling towards the accomplishment of the organizational objectives. Roles and objectives of personal management. It personally deals with build-up culture, philosophy and leadership style, approach, openness and participation. Deals with human relations at work, understand and resolve interpersonal problems, identify job hazards and evolve conducive working conditions, design organization structure and personal policies, evolve compensation packages. We have different role functions in our personal management. The role functions of personal management basically deals with human relations, industrial relations, welfare and administration. Under our human relations, we have manpower planning, structure, compensation package, training, appraisal, personal records and management. Next we have is industrial relations, which deals with statutory compliance, relationship with union, employees and local bodies, negotiations, labor law implementation, court proceeds, discipline and time officer workers. The next deals with welfare, which basically deals with canteen, hospital, first aid, transport, the different schemes to be followed by employees, school, functions in organization, and finally we have administration function, which deals with transport, establishment, housing colony schools, security and miscellaneous things around. The salary, wages and incentives. A salary is a fixed amount of money or compensation paid to an employee by an employer in return for work performed. Salary is commonly paid in fixed intervals. For example, monthly payments of 1/12 of the annual salary. It is typically determined by comparing market pay rates for people performing similar work in similar industries in the same region. Salary is also determined by leaving the pay rates and salary ranges established by an individual employer. Now, what is a wage? Wages is the return given to workers for their mental and physical efforts which they put into the production process. We have two types of wages, which is time wage system and piece wage system. In time wage system, the workers are paid wages according to the time spent at the workplace. Example, a day, a week, a month, etc. In this system, the work or production done by an employee is not taken into consideration. This is the oldest type of wage system. Piece wage system. In this system, wages are paid to the worker according to their output. This wage system is directly related to the skill, production, capacity, speed and precision of the worker. This system is also known as payment by result system. Next we have is incentives. Incentives are the additional remuneration payable to efficient workers for their meritorious performance in terms of time, cost, quality to motivate them to be more productive. Incentives create aptitude for work among workers, increasing their productivity. In the absence of incentives, lethargy, inflexibility, frustration and indifference of the workers leads to inefficiency in the long run. The different types of incentives we have is monetary incentives and non-monetary incentives. Monetary incentives. Money is the main element of incentives. It boosts the enthusiasm and self-confidence of the workers. It provides the worker with the economic security and gives the worker a social security. For example, profit sharing, co-partnership, bonus, suggestions and advices. Non-monetary incentives. Incentives are not based on money, are non-monetary incentives. Non-monetary incentives are usually in increasing production and efficiencies. For example, security of employment, promotions, advisor, assignment of responsibility, etc. Performance appraisal. Let's look into the definitions given by Newstrom. It is the process of evaluating the performance of employees, sharing that information with them and searching for the ways to improve their performance. Meaning, a performance appraisal is a process of evaluating an employee's performance of a job in terms of its requirements. Purpose for performance appraisal. The main purpose of employees assessment are identify employees who are eligible for salary increase, generate data to take personal decisions such as promotion, transfer and layoff or termination decisions. Determine the training and development needs of the employees. Validate the selection process. We have different appraisal methods for the employees. First is narrative essays. Sometimes the supervisors must write a description of the employee's performance. The next is critical incidents. A performance appraisal in which the supervisor keeps a record of incidents that show positive and negative ways the employee has acted. The supervisor uses this record to assess the employee's performance. The next one is ranking comparisons ranking method. It is the oldest and simplest method of performance appraisal. In this method, the employee is ranked from the highest to the lowest or from the best to the worst. Paired comparison approach. A performance appraisal that measures the relative performance of employees in a group. The next is checklist simple, which is weighted. The main purpose of this method is to reduce the evaluator's burden of rating the employee. Graphic rating scale. A performance appraisal that rates the degree to which the employee has achieved various characteristics. The next one is bars, which is behaviorally anchored rating scale. Based on the employee's performance and behavior, employees are anchored in different slots of good, average and poor. The eighth one which deals with is MBO, which is management by objective. Philosophy of management that rates performance on the basis of employee achievement of goals set by mutual agreement of employee and manager. Next, 360 degrees feedback. The multi-source feedback method provides a comprehensive perspective of employee performance by utilizing feedback from the full circle of people with whom the employee interacts: supervisors, subordinates and co-workers. Next, we move on to quality control. What is a quality? Quality refers to the sum of the attributes or properties that describe a product. Quality control. It is a process that is used to ensure a certain level of quality in a product or service. It might include whatever actions a business deems necessary to provide for the control and verification of certain characteristics of a product or service. Most often, it involves thoroughly examining the testing the quality of products or the results of services. The basic goal of this process is to ensure that the products or services that are provided meet specific requirements and characteristics, such as being dependable, satisfactory, safe and physical sound. Examples of quality control. Manufacturers of food products often have employees who test the finished products for taste and other qualities. Clothing manufacturers have workers inspect garments to ensure that they are properly sewn. Service-oriented companies often have representatives who observe the services being performed or who do follow-up checks to ensure that everything was done properly. Next, we move on to licensing, registration, how the registration process to start a business. Incorporation of producer companies and other matters. The producer companies have to be registered under Companies Act 1956 with due amendments in the Companies Act 2013. The two documents required to be submitted to the Registrar of Company for their pursual are MOA and AOA, which is Memorandum of Association and Article of Association. There are clauses related to the capital to be raised, clauses related to the objects of the producer company, clauses related to the name of the company, appointment of directors and internal and external directors, their remunerations will be discussed in every board meetings, and appointment of board of directors is an important point of the agenda. Management of producer company. The people who sign the Memorandum of Association and Article of Association are deemed to become the board of directors. The listing agreement of 49 suggests that there should be 3 executive directors and 3 non-executive directors. The AGM, Annual General Meeting. The AGM should be convened once in every 12 months and many issues will be put forward for the pursual of the board of directors, like the company's process will be reviewed, declaration of dividends, announcement of incentives and promotion to the employees, and reviewing strategic policies of the company. Share capital. The share capital of a producer company shall consist of equity shares only. The shareholders are allotted the shares through IPO, which is initial public offering. Right issue and shares are also issued to the internal employees through ESOP, which is Employee Stock Option Plan.
My question is, are the shares allotted to internal employees?
It depends. Many companies do allot it to their employees, and there are few companies who do not also allot it to their employees because they think that the internal information is known to the employees. So, if they allot it to the internal employees, then it is called as ESOP, Employee Stock Option Plan. Finance accounts and audit. The books of accounts are to be periodically audited and verified by auditor company, and the financial reports thus audited should be sent to SEBI every 3 months. Loans to members and investments. Loans are given to the members of the producers companies as per the provisions of the Articles of Association. Licensing. The Indian government established a licensing system in order to maintain control over industries according to the Industrial Development and Regulation Act 1951. A license is a written permission granted to an enterprise by the government according to which the products mentioned therein can be manufactured by the enterprise. The license also includes many particulars such as name of the product to be produced, the place where the factory to be located, expansion of the enterprise, the limit of the production capacity. Now, the objectives of licensing: encouraging small scale industries, encouraging new entrepreneurs, regulating the location of the enterprise, ensuring balanced regional development, promoting technological advancement. Present position of licensing policies: compulsory licensing. Compulsory licensing, according to the new Industrial Policy 1991, it is necessary to obtain a license only in case of 15 industries which are engaged in the field of defense equipments, luxury goods and hazardous commodities. In wake of liberalization, this number has been reduced to 5. The 5 industries for which licensing is compulsory are: first, alcoholic products; second, industrial explosive; third, hazardous explosives; fourth, aerospace and defense equipments; and the last, fifth, tobacco products. Let us see the municipal laws, business ethics and taxes. The municipal laws. Many local laws will impact on the operations of a small business. Interims of things like licensing, building regulations, fire regulations, health regulations, trading requirements and so on. As a small business owner, it is important for you to understand the area of law that the local government has to power to promulgate and enforce. Entrepreneurs should know the local laws and local government structures. For example, the municipality will enforce these local authorities. The entrepreneurs should know all the local laws like safety, fire, building, trading and health services. All the related issues concerned affects any business in any town or city. For this reason, it is important for all prospective or established business owners to check with their local authorities about the specific requirements they are required to open or run a business. Business are regulated, administered and controlled by local councils or municipalities like building regulations, firefighting services, noise pollution, trade licenses and permits, health services, water, sanitation services, additional matters such as display of advertisement, the sale of food or liquor, fencing of fences, street trading are also controlled by the local authorities. The local municipality town planning department will advise an entrepreneur on the toning or land use of a particular property or premises. Now, let us see what is business ethics. Ethics concern an individual's moral judgment about right and wrong. Decision taken within an organization may be made by individuals or groups, but whoever makes them will be influenced by the culture of the company. Ethic is a set of rules that define right and wrong conduct. 3 types of management ethics we have. First is moral management, conforms to high standards of ethical behavior. Immoral management, a style devoid of ethical principles and active opposition to what is ethical. Amoral management, intentional, does not consider ethical factors. Unintentional, casual or careless about ethical considerations in business. Now, let us see characteristics of ethical organization. Ethical organizations are based on the principles of fairness. All stakeholders are treated equally without any discrimination. Benefit of stakeholders in given procedure over own interest. There is clear communication in ethical organization. What is to be done, how it is to be done is clearly stated. Taxes. Corporate taxes are annual taxes payable on the income of a corporate operating in India. Any company or enterprise, whether Indian or foreign, is liable to taxation. Under the Income Tax Act 1961, corporation tax is a tax which is levied on the incomes of registered companies and corporation. A company means any Indian company or any corporate body incorporated by or under the laws of a country outside India, or any institution, association or a body which was assessed as a company for an assessment year under the Income Tax Act 1922, or was assessed under this act as a company for an assessment year commencing on or before April 1st, 1970, or any institution, association or body, whether incorporated or not, whether Indian or non-Indian, which is declared by a general or special order of the Central Board of Direct Taxes to be a company. However, for the taxes calculation, or however for the purpose of taxation, companies are broadly classified as domestic company. Section 222A means an Indian company, a company formed and registered under the Companies Act 1956, or any other company which in respect of its income liable to tax under the Income Tax Act has made the prescribed arrangement for declaration and payment within India of the dividends payable out of such income. A domestic company may be a public company or a private company. Now, foreign company, section 223A means a company whose control and management are situated wholly outside India, which has not made the prescribed arrangement for declaration and payment of dividends within India. Corporate tax for foreign companies is 42%, and there is a 2.5% surcharge plus an education cess of 2% of the tax payable. Dividends are taxed as are capital gains. Goods produced in India are subject to a federal excise tax of about 16%. Federal and state sales tax are being replaced with a VAT, value added tax. Most services are also taxed. Prior to liberalization, customs duty for imports into India often exceeded 100%. Today, the basic duty is 12.5% on most items, but in most cases importers pay an additional countervailing duty to match the amount of excise tax that an Indian producer might pay. Additional duty and education cess also apply to customs. Personal income tax makes up a small portion of the Indian government's overall collection. The maximum rate is about 34%. Much of the Indian population pays no personal tax, either because their income is not documented or because their income is below the threshold for taxation. Corporate expenses are taxed via the fringe benefits tax. If you have employees in India, there are number of payroll deductions and additional payments that are required by law. PF, Provident Fund, is like a retirement plan. Gratuity and bonus are required payments. Historical managers and executive receive several company paid benefits such as car and driver allowances, subsidized loan, rent payments, furnished housing, household help, phone lines, etc. Most of them are taxed now. Next, we deal with labor law application. Labor law application. It is the body of laws, administrative ruling and precedents which address the relationship between and among employers, employee and labor organizations. Labor laws harmonize many angles of the relationship between trade unions, employer and employee. The final goal of labor law is to bring both employer and employee on the same level, therefore mitigating the differences between the two ever-varying groups. Next we have is origin. Labour law emerged when the employers tried to restrict the power of workers' organization and keep labour costs low. The workers began demanding better conditions and right to organize, so on, improve their standard of living. Employers' cost increased due to workers' demand. This led to a chaotic situation which required the intervention of government. In order to put an end, the government enacted many labour laws in the country. India has various labour laws such as resolution of industrial disputes, working conditions, labour compensations, insurance, child labour, equal remuneration, etc. The term labour means productive work, especially physical work for wages. Labour law, also known as employment law, is the body of law, administrative ruling and precedents which address the legal rights of the restrictions on working people and their organization. There are two broad categories of labour law. First, collective labour law relates to the tripartite relationship between employee and employer and the union. The second, individual labour law, concerns employees' right at work and through the contract for work. Classification of labour law in India. Labour laws may be classified under the following heads. First one, law related to industrial relations such as Trade Union Act 1926, Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, Industrial Disputes Act 1947. The next law is the law related to wages such as Payment of Wages Act 1936, Minimum Wages Act 1948, Payment of Bonus Act 1965, Working Journalist Fixation of Rates of Wages Act 1958, laws related to working hours, conditions of service and employment such as Factories Act 1948, Plantation Labour Act 1951, Mines Act 1952, Working Journalists and Other Newspaper Employees, Conditions of Service and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1955, Merchant Shipping Act 1958, Motor Transport Workers Act 1961, Bidi and Cigar Workers Condition of Employment Act 1966, Contract Labour Regulation and Abolition Act 1970, Sales Promotion Employees Act 1976. The next act, which belongs to the law related to equality and empowerment of women, such as Maternity Benefits Act 1961, Equal Remuneration Act 1976, laws related to deprived and disadvantaged sections of the society such as Bonded Labour System Abolishment Act 1976, Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, Children Pledging of Labour Act 1933. The laws related to social security, which includes Workmen's Compensation Act 1923, Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, Payment of Gratuity Acts 1972, Employers Liability Act 1938, BD Workers Welfare Cess Act 1976, Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008. Finally, we have so many works or all these laws and acts are given for the welfare of the persons in the organizations, which are to be duly followed by many of the organizations. Enterprises as consumers' rights and responsibility. When individual consumers purchase goods and services, they enjoy certain rights and protections. These derive from general consumer protection legislation and also for the important utility sectors from industry specific regulations. These various provisions are designed to help consumers to make effective purchasing decisions, without fear of exploitation or misrepresentation. In general, the level of protection afforded to business customers is significantly lower, reflecting a view that business ought to be in a position to look after themselves. A culture of relevant emptor or buyer beware is typically considered sufficient protection for business customers other than in extreme conditions. Protections provided for business customers. When business purchase goods and services by contract, they are generally seen as able to look after themselves. Finally, to conclude, the challenge to the entrepreneur in the present scenario is positioning of the business with ethics and taking care of laws relating to the employees, and finally delivering the quality products and services to the end consumers. Thank you.